World War II, one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. They say that victory is decided by guns, by military might, by brutal head-on battles. People erect monuments to honor exceptional generals and soldiers who fell on bloody battlefields. They write history books to glorify the glorious triumphs of colossal tanks and destructive bombers. But there is another story. A story where victory didn't come from a steel fist or from the roar of a rifle, but from a far more sophisticated weapon, the imagination of a single man. This is the tale of a man who turned his words into a deadly weapon and an entire colossal war machine into a puppet in his hands. He never attended a secret spy school. He had no formal training in espionage. He had no army behind him. He was not a soldier. He was just an ordinary man living a normal life, but carrying within him an extraordinary will. And alone he wove together a massive spy network that, in truth, never existed. His name was Juan Pujol. His enemies, the Nazi intelligence officers, called him Alaric, but the world came to know him as Garbo, a code name given to him by British intelligence MI5, a nickname that acknowledged his masterful acting skills, a greatest actor in the history of espionage. His story is not just an old page of history. It is a profound reminder of the nature of war and the nature of courage. It shows us that the battlefield is not just a place of guns and bullets, but also a war of minds, a battle of stories. In that war, the victor is not the strongest, but the smartest, the one who knows how to exploit the weaknesses of the opponent and turn seemingly harmless things into deadly weapons. Juan Pujol used his intellect and his lies to orchestrate one of the greatest deceptions in history, completely altering the course of the war and saving tens of thousands of people. He proved that sometimes silence and lies can be more powerful than the roar of a gun, and that the quietest battles can have the loudest outcomes. Juan Pujol was not a hero in the conventional sense. He was not a warrior, nor was he a politician. He was a regular Spanish man with a simple childhood and an unremarkable life. Yet within this seemingly harmless man lay an extraordinary imagination, a sharp intellect, and a firm will. After witnessing the devastation wrought by both sides in the Spanish Civil War, he developed a deep-seated hatred for fascism. He realized that in this war, lies and trickery could be more powerful than bombs and bullets. For him, fascism was a lie, and the best way to fight it was with that very same weapon. But he had no gun. He had no power. His only weapon was his ability to tell a story. He used it to convince German intelligence that he was their most loyal and effective spy. And with the code name Garbo, he went down in history not as a brave soldier, but as a master of deception. He possessed a natural talent, the ability to create perfect, detailed, and vivid stories that convinced his enemies completely. He used his intellect to fight a war he could not join through violence. He proved that imagination, when used correctly, can be a deadly weapon. He became a great deceiver, but the purpose of his deception was to protect truth and freedom, to save a world on the brink of collapse from the very ideology he despised. Before becoming Garbo, Pujol made amateurish, almost naive attempts to help the Allies. He approached British intelligence offering to work as a spy, but was rejected outright. They saw a man lacking experience and any discernible skills, and they simply couldn't trust someone like that. The rejection did not discourage him. On the contrary, it motivated him to forge his own path. He moved to Lisbon, Portugal, a neutral city, and a hub of espionage at the time. From there alone, and without any assistance, he began to create his own network. He taught himself how to write reports, how to create simple codes, and most importantly, he began to write stories. Stories about the fictional agents he had imagined. These stories were sent to German intelligence, and incredibly, they believed him. Juan Pujol, an ordinary man, had single-handedly entered one of history's greatest espionage wars with an extraordinary confidence and audacity. By 1944, the war was at a critical turning point. The Allies had planned Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious invasion in history to liberate Europe from Nazi rule. But for this operation to succeed, the element of surprise was paramount. The German command had to be convinced that the invasion would happen somewhere else. The ultimate target of the Allies was Normandy, an area with suitable terrain, but not the most obvious strategic location. To achieve this, they needed to trick Hitler into believing the landing would occur at Pas-de-Calais, a region closer to England that the Germans considered a logical and highly probable target. Hitler, with his arrogance and overconfidence, was certain that the Allies would never attack a place without a clear strategic advantage like Normandy. This strategic deception, one of the greatest bluffs in history, was not orchestrated by a team of elite soldiers, but by a single man, Juan Pujol. In his role as Garbo, he undertook an impossible mission to send 27 false reports to Nazi intelligence officers. These reports didn't just provide misinformation, they were intricately constructed, filled with small but incredibly convincing details. This was a grand chess game, and Pujol on his own played it masterfully, one move at a time, leading the enemy into a deadly trap. He became a double agent, but was loyal to only one ideal: the victory of the Allies and the end of fascism. Pujol's work was not just about sending fake news. It was part of a larger deception campaign known as Operation Fortitude. The goal of Fortitude was to create a phantom army, a non-existent force with detailed information about its bases, soldiers, tanks, and planes. This phantom army, called FUSAG, 1st United States Army Group, was created to threaten Pas-de-Calais, and Pujol, with his network of agents, became the eyes of German intelligence in England. His reports not only reinforced Hitler's belief in Pas-de-Calais, but also provided proof of FUSAG's existence and strength. He described in detail the phantom bases, the fake exercises, and even complained about the living conditions and food rations of the American soldiers. These small human details made his reports so vivid and authentic that they were beyond suspicion. He had become a great storyteller, and his story convinced one of history's most brutal dictators that what he was hearing was the truth, and that truth led to the downfall of his empire. This was when Pujol's imagination truly soared. With the help of MI5, he created not just one, but a whole network of 27 fictional characters, each a spy meticulously invented. Each spy had their own life story, their own motivations, and their own communication network. There was a disgruntled businessman, another was a fanatical patriot, and there was even a lonely spinster obsessed with her own romantic dramas. Pujol created fake reports, sent fake urgent messages, and even offered fake tactical advice. All of this information was imagined from books, magazines, tourist maps, and even snippets of conversation he overheard on the street. His stories were not just simple fabrications. They were built on a deep psychological analysis and a profound understanding of how the enemy's mind worked. He gave the Germans the information they wanted to hear, information that fit their existing predictions and biases. For instance, he would send a report about Allied troops building up near Pas-de-Calais, complete with small details like the number of soldiers, types of tanks, and troop movement schedules. Everything was carefully calculated, convincing Hitler and his commanders to trust these reports absolutely. They believed that Garbo's network was one of their most reliable intelligence sources. These detailed and compelling reports painted a perfect picture of an invasion at Pas-de-Calais. They dispelled any lingering doubts Hitler might have had, making him 100% certain that the Allies would not land at Normandy. This was a war of stories, and Pujol, with his unparalleled talent for storytelling, won it resoundingly. To make his network even more believable, Pujol even arranged for one of his agents to die. He reported that a fictional agent had passed away from illness and asked Nazi Germany to send a pension to the widow of the man. The Nazis, believing him, completely sent the money. He used these small human details to make his network come alive and feel authentic. He created complex scripts with actors who had their own personalities, strengths, and weaknesses. All of it was part of the great play he had created to deceive an entire empire. He had become a director, a screenwriter, and a lead actor in a deadly play, a play whose success could change the fate of the entire world. His psychological mastery was so absolute that he was able to use the Germans' own resources and their own belief systems against them, turning their trust into their ultimate weakness. His one-man show was a triumph of wit over brute force, a legendary act of deception that secured a victory for freedom. The outcome of this chess game changed history. The Germans concentrated most of their elite forces, including their most powerful armored divisions, at Pas-de-Calais, waiting for an invasion that would never come. Even as the Normandy landing, or D-Day, began, Hitler was convinced it was merely a feint, a diversionary tactic. He believed Garbo's false reports so completely that he refused to deploy his forces to reinforce Normandy. This delay was a critical factor, allowing the Allies to solidify their position, establish a firm beachhead on the French coast, and open the door to the liberation of Europe. Thousands of lives were saved. One of Hitler's worst strategic decisions was made based on the lies of a single man. The Normandy landing was a resounding success. By opening a new front, it laid the groundwork for the downfall of Nazi Germany and the end of World War II. Juan Pujol, that ordinary man, became the only person in history to be awarded high honors by both Britain and Nazi Germany from two opposing sides. Britain gave him the Order of the British Empire. Germany gave him the Iron Cross. Two medals, one man, two opposing sides for the same reason: his extraordinary talent for espionage. This recognition from both sides is an undeniable testament to his brilliance, a fact both hilarious and tragic in the annals of history. After the war, to ensure his own safety, Pujol had to fake his own death and live an anonymous life in Venezuela. He had to bury his glorious past, living a quiet life, his great deeds unknown to the world. A hero had to become a shadow to protect his life. The truth about him was only revealed decades later, when the world was finally ready to accept his extraordinary story. His final years were spent in a quiet, anonymous existence, far from the world-changing events he had orchestrated. It was a poignant end for a man who had lived such a magnificent lie in the service of the ultimate truth. The story of Juan Pujol teaches us a profound strategic lesson. The power of information lies not in its quantity, but in the perceived credibility it holds for the recipient. Pujol did not provide the Germans with accurate information, but he gave them the stories they wanted to believe. He exploited the psychology and the arrogance of his enemy to turn lies into a tool for victory. He understood that in a psychological war, controlling information isn't just about providing false data. It's about providing what the enemy is predisposed to believe and then leading them into a trap willingly. He turned the enemy's own psychology into his weapon, and he used it masterfully. His story also demonstrates that in war, intellect and creativity can be far more powerful weapons than guns and bombs. A story told in the right way, a lie meticulously constructed, can turn the tide of an entire war, determining the fate of millions of people. Juan Pujol, an ordinary man, became one of history's greatest deceivers, and also one of humanity's greatest unsung heroes. He did not fight with violence, but with his intellect, his resilience, and his patriotism. His life is a living testament that the truth can be protected with lies and peace can be brought about by imaginary stories. He did not use force to win, but used creativity, his intellect, to achieve victory. This is a crucial lesson about the importance of information warfare, a lesson that remains just as relevant today. His work stands as a testament to the fact that the most impactful battles are often fought not on a physical battlefield, but in the minds of leaders. And the greatest weapon in that war is not power, but persuasion. His genius was in understanding that the greatest lies are those that are most wanted to be believed. Juan Pujol, a man who turned his imagination into a weapon and his words into a fatal blow. His life is living proof that in war, victory does not always come from guns and bullets. It can come from a pen of story and an extraordinary mind. His story is a reminder of the power of intellect, of resilience, and of hope even in the darkest moments of history. His life is a lesson in courage, in creativity, and in the difference one person can make. He proved that even in situations that seem impossible, there is always a way, a path to victory. And that path can be found right within our own imagination. He did not use brute force to change the world, but used his creativity, his intellect, and he succeeded. His story is a reminder that within every person, there is a hidden extraordinary power, a power that can change the world. That power does not come from guns and bombs, but from our hearts and our minds. And that is the greatest legacy that Juan Pujol left to humanity.